Hello again, everybody. It's time for yet another edition of Reader Questions. Got another 3 questions this week. That seems to be the magic number. Before I get started, I should do some housekeeping again. Not literal housekeeping, although I probably should. There's some boxes over there. More information on those later. Right now, if you are a fan of my sci-fi stuff, you can get the latest book. It's been out for a while, but it's now in a bundle that I curated at storybundle.com. So you can do, I'm not going to do the whole sales spiel, but check out storybundle.com and you'll find a sci-fi bundle there of all books that I picked out. Also on the sci-fi front, if you've been waiting for it, the paperback for Bypass Gemini should be available momentarily. You can already buy it at some places. It will be available on Amazon and the rest in the not too distant future. That concludes the sales portion of our show. So now we're going to look at the questions. First question is from Jamwa on YouTube. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Actually, it's got an XD at the end, so it might be Jamwa. Not sure. Okay. If you make enough money from the Book of Deacon series, will you bring out hard copies of the books? Well, as I just showed, I've got the paperback of Bypass Gemini coming out, but if you say hard copies and you mean simply not digital copies, then I already have them, and they're available on Amazon and not at bookstores unless they're special order. But I've got the Rise of the Red Shadow, I've got the Battle of Veril, and the Great Convergence, and of course the big seller of them all, the Book of Deacon. I am in the process of releasing the rest of my books, almost all of my books in paperback, but it's going to be a little while because I have to get artwork done, and my artist is super duper busy. It's not going to be any major new artwork. It's just going to basically be I've already got the front of the book. I need the side and the back, and they have to match based upon how many pages are in the book. So it's not super simple. It changes from book to book based upon the format. But yes, there will be hard copies. However, if you're talking about hardcover copies, unlikely unless I do a Kickstarter. They're much more expensive, and I don't know if there's enough people interested in them for me to justify making them. But never say never. Second question. This one is from Lizzie on Goodreads. My Kindle account indicates there is an update to Big Sigma number 3. That would be the third book in the sci-fi series. Are there changes made to the story or just typos, grammar, and the like? It turns out, upon further investigation on this, she was mostly concerned if it was a change like when they altered the wording in Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer to move what is now a racially inappropriate word. I have not made any of those changes. If you've read my stuff, you will find very few instances of anything that even might approach that sort of level of necessary change, and even if I did have that sort of thing, I don't think I'm popular enough for the politically correct people to discover me. But as I say, I'm a fairly politically correct guy. So when you see an update on my books, rest assured it's either me correcting what are sure to be many, many typos, or in this case, it was altering the back. At the end of every one of my books, I have a list of the other books you can find. I have to update that periodically because I have new books come out. So often the only update will be me updating the list of books in the back. But rest assured, I don't change the plot when I do updates. With one exception, early on when there was a giant plot hole somebody found, and I closed it with a few sentences. But yeah, the story will be the same story across the board. And now for the third question. This is going to introduce a new thing. I have a question here from Anonymous, also on Goodreads, and it's about the Rise of the Red Shadow. I just finished Rise of the Red Shadow, enjoyed it thoroughly, and I'm wondering how much of the backstory did you have planned when you wrote the first 3 books, and how much did you have to imagine for this novel based on what you had already written of Lane? Now, in order for me to answer this question, I'm going to have to get into spoiler territory. And because I know a lot of you are seeing this just go by on your Facebook feed or seeing it on YouTube maybe, and you don't have the sound on, hopefully you'll have the sound on for this part, because this is an important disclaimer. we are about to go into spoiler territory, and to make it a visual indicator that I am talking about spoilers, I'm going to introduce the spoiler hat. While I'm wearing this hat, I'm talking about spoilers. So here we go. How much did I have to come up with for the Book of Deacon, for the Rise of the Red Shadow, as compared to what I already had for the Book of Deacon? The broad strokes of Lane's early life, I already knew. I knew that he was raised on a plantation, despite what he says when he's under the name Leo. I knew that he knew a person named Blind Ben at that time. I knew the details of his escape from the plantation, and I knew the details surrounding his arrival and departure from Entwell. The rest of it had to be invented. All of the characters, with the exception of Blind Ben, I had to come up with for the Rise of the Red Shadow. And any of the events that did not involve the plantation or the arrival at Entwell. That means everything within Entwell I had to come up with as well. So, I mean, it was a lot of connect the dots, because obviously we already know a lot of stuff about Lane from the trilogy, and it was fun to go back and come up with plot elements and characters that would introduce the character traits that we've come to know and love from the character. So I guess it's probably about 80% new stuff with about 20% structure that I had already established based on the trilogy. Thus concludes the spoiler portion of our broadcast. So, that's it for questions this week. If you have any questions, then leave them in the comments, and if I get enough, I'll answer them again. Thank you, and thanks for reading.